people want to be white people so bad. At least that's what I used to think. Because the way some Asians avoid the sun like the plague, and how whitening agents are in everything, what in the whiteness is going on?
To the Asians that are still bending over backwards for white acceptance, what has it gotten you? You guys got rid of affirmative action, and now we are not getting into top universities at the same rate that we used to, but when affirmative action was still a thing. Our elders were getting beat up in the streets during COVID. Did you having a white husband stop that from happening to your mom? Some of y'all made that shitty fusion cuisine and put strawberry in matcha, and now the white people really like it. And our food costs way too much. There's a matcha shortage. The colonizers are looking at ube now. They're trying to bulldoze Chinatowns across the nation. And your white husband is still gonna cheat on you when you have a baby and he finds a younger Asian woman. Your kid still doesn't have blue eyes. Your kid still has brown hair. What has it gotten you? What has this house servant mentality gotten you, gotten your family, gotten your community? I get that you feel better than other Asian women. I get that you feel like you're prettier, smarter, more accepted than Asian women like me who don't choose to do those things. But you're not even getting paid for waiting around in H Mart waiting to help a white person find Asian groceries. Please move out of the way. I'm trying to get my chicken feet here. Oh yeah. And what has voting for Trump personally done for you?
If you're an Asian person and you're a conservative, I need you to detach your nose from that hole in front of you, because conservatives do not care about us. And a lot of conservative talking heads will get on the internet and they'll speak very highly about Asian people. They'll say that we're well educated. They'll say that we're hardworking. But they're saying these things so that they can justify bashing a whole other group. They're only using us as a metric by which they can bash other minority groups. We are closer in proximity to whiteness than other minorities are, but make no mistake, that doesn't mean that we're white. Like, think of COVID. Think of how quickly conservatives switched up on Asian people, and how quickly they were like, oh, let's rename the virus to the China virus, and how quickly they threw all Asian people under the bus because they cannot tell us apart, bro.
Well, I know I might sound a bit crazy saying this, but America might actually need to thank Donald Trump at some point. Not because he's good, not because he's smart, but because he did what maybe a polite president would never do. He has ripped the mask off. He has stirred the pot so hard that everything underneath has, floated to the surface. And now everybody is actually scrambling. That's what we are seeing. Everybody is crying. Everybody is realizing who they really are amongst themselves. And most importantly, what America has always been. But those people that are probably having to learn this lesson the hard way are the people who thought that proximity to whiteness, closeness, being closer to whiteness, being of fairer or lighter skin color meant that you were protected. Because now when we see even white Americans themselves are complaining about the police, about the economic situation, how about you who really were just hanging on to proximity, being closer to whiteness? This is exactly what is happening to these Indian Americans. And I don't mean the Native Americans, I mean those Southeast Asians. Yeah, so that is what I want us to talk about in this video. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if it is your first time. And I'll see you after these videos with a good commentary.
I don't know what he thought was going to happen coming to Ohio at a Charlie Kirk Turning Point USA event with young white Christians in the audience asking him questions. He was met with resistance, racism, and hatred.
Every time Vivek Ramaswamy gets on stage, it feels like he's putting himself through a humiliation ritual.
I'm mad at Asian Americans because why are we so smart but so silent? What's with the silence? I suspect that if we opened our mouths, we would side with black people and other brown people as the real American heroes. Yeah, we're brown, not white. But this would disrupt the white supremacy brainwash we're caught in. And deep down, we hate ourselves for siding with whiteness. We know they're wrong. Our silence is the sound of us hating ourselves. But that's the Squid Game trap that they set for us, an Asian American matrix that messes with our reality. And it's all based on hating black people. You know, the ones we're all secretly trying to copy, even the white peoples. White supremacy isn't smart, but it's tricky like that. You like being tricked? I don't know any Asians who put up with that. We gotta decolonize ourselves and find Asian joy.
This is a great comment. I also can't rationalize why Vivek or Cash pander the way they do, but I can offer some introspection. In my last video, I talked about growing up in America and not wanting to be brown as much as possible. But I realized when I matured that I was pandering to the same people that were ignorant against my own culture. I may be American, but both my parents are Sri Lankan, and to go against that culture is going against my own blood. And do it for what? For the people that see me as something else, but I'm one of the good ones? Hell no. Cash and Vivek likely went through the same thing, but didn't have that experience. And to give even more introspection, there's a lot of hatred for brown people and idolization for white people in brown culture. And it's not just in South Asia, it's in Asia as a whole. I mean, a lot of you have likely seen that Chinese ad where a black guy went into the washing machine, came out white. That is the mindset of like all of Asia. And here on the West, like it still exists, but it's just on a much lower level. Like if something like that was aired, there would be outrage. But even here, I mean, look at Hollywood. Most people are fair skinned, right? And it wasn't until I feel like not that long ago where the cast has been more diverse. And even then there's light skin, like darker skin is not sought after. That's its own problem, but I'm trying to show you that hatred is not just existent in the West and towards brown people here, but even back home. There's this level of self-hatred, and I'm sure that Cash and Vivek probably internalized this to a point they thought they could pander. They thought that it would go as far as convincing these white Christians who have likely never opened up a Bible and learned that Jesus, or know that Jesus is not from America. And I'm glad he was confronted with it. I'm glad that this is going viral. I wish people wouldn't be taking this out on like the entire brown race. But yeah, Vivek and Cash, they just pander for power. And I hope the introspection I talked about in this video helps you understand a little bit more about the internalized hatred of being brown. And I guess where Cash and Vivek are trying to go. But Cash makes me hate my nickname. And Vivek, I could tell he's smarter than this, but I don't know. I don't know where he was going either.
I don't know what he thought was going to happen coming to Ohio at a Charlie Kirk Turning Point USA event with young white Christians in the audience asking him questions. He was met with resistance, racism, and hatred. Like, I literally don't understand what it is going to take for people like Vivek to understand that it doesn't matter what you do, they are not going to accept you. I mean, these people think that Christianity is what founded this country, that this country was founded on Christianity, even though many of the founding fathers were not Christian, but they still have this belief in their head. They think they are superior. And what do we call that? White supremacy. They literally think that if you are not a white Christian, that you are evil. They will even go so far as to judge your tattoos, judge your nose rings, etc. Because if you aren't a carbon copy of the next person and the person before them, then you don't fit in. And they don't want you here. I do know one thing though. The Democratic Party needs to organize better. Because Turning Point is going all over this country, getting these young voters, these young Christian voters registered and voting.
So I'm seeing a lot of backlash for Vivek running for governor, and I think that's very comical, right? That was to be expected. And all I'm gonna do is just leave this clip here so you can just remind yourself of what may be the reason why a certain demographic is not very pleased with his current campaign for governor in the very predominantly white state of Ohio.
You articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that. And it's directly related to what you were just talking about. You know, the thing about nationalism, you're totally right. It is like to use the word nationalism. Oh, it's Hitler, it's Hitler. And, you know, Hitler had soup. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have soup. Hitler loved dogs. That doesn't mean you shouldn't love dogs. So I think we have to move past this. If Hitler did it, it must be bad. There is a core national identity that is the identity of the WASP. And that doesn't mean we can't take anyone else in, a Sri Lankan or a Japanese or an Indian. But the core around which the nation's values are formed is the WASP. We've never had a president who didn't have at least partial English ancestry.
Every time Vivek Ramaswamy gets on stage, it feels like he's putting himself through a humiliation ritual.
If you are an Indian, a Hindu, coming from a different culture, different religion than those who founded this country, those who grew this country, built this country, made this country the beautiful thing that it is today, what are you conserving? You are bringing change.
I remember watching him during the 2024 debates, and he was really trying to make himself like this baby Trump thing, and it wasn't working because people just didn't like him due to the fact that he wasn't white and Christian. It's funny because as much as the right would want you to believe that the left only cares about identity, it's pretty evident that identity is the most important thing to them. Because the left is open to anyone. Anyone can be on the left and be accepted. On the right, it's like, you're gay, you're not in. You're black or brown, you're allowed, but like once we go far enough to the right, you're not allowed anymore. That's not even mentioning what they do to beer companies that even think about trans people. Just give it like a few more months and they're going to be calling Kash Patel slurs. I promise you they will.
I'm going to need to circle back with the Indian Trumpers, specifically the ones who thought they would qualify for the tax breaks and the ones who actually will qualify for the tax breaks, because we need to have a very serious conversation. I know you guys like to lean in hard to that whole model minority myth, that deportations were just about other brown communities that don't come here the correct way. Now that it's clear that the administration is targeting mass swaths of people with legal status, people that this administration has consistently demonized and scapegoated as the reason for this country's issues, what do you think is going to happen once these people are deported and the housing crisis remains as acute as ever? Because these people didn't own the homes. You did. Nice homes in nice areas with good school districts. Once the rest of the scapegoats are gone, do you think the non-college educated right-wing militias waiting in the wings are going to just watch you thrive, let you thrive? And when they inevitably come for you, do you think anyone in this administration is going to do anything to stop them? Because what I can promise you is this AI bot here is not putting her animatronic neck on the line. Not a chance. As she's done the entire campaign when it comes to Indian hate, she's keeping her mouth shut. I am not saying this because I am trying to scare you. In fact, all the fear-mongering I did prior to Election Day ended up being an undersell. So I am just trying to help you connect the very real dots. ICE is playing the crane game with brown people at this point, kicking out anything they pick up. They do not care that your accent or your tax bracket are a little bit different. They are already forcing Ivy League PhD candidates to self-deport. The time to understand who your true enemy was before November 5th. But the sooner you realize it now, the more time you will have to prepare and hopefully be able to vote accordingly.
I don't want to hear a single conservative in my comment section chirping about Sharia law because of Zohran's election. Okay, you guys love Sharia law. You love fundamentalist extremism when white people are implementing it, which is why y'all are also in my comment section saying repeal the 19th, which is why y'all celebrated when Roe v. Wade was overturned, which is why y'all are trying to get Obergefell overturned. You love Sharia law, but when you throw a hijab on it, suddenly it's scary. Okay, you love fundamentalist extremism, but only when it's white people flavored instead of Arab people flavored. Like, shut up. It is the same thing every time a white girl or a white boy or a gay person posts about Palestine. They're like, do you know what they do to gay people in Palestine? Do you know what they do to gay people here? Do you know what they're doing to trans people here? No, you love repressive policies when white people implement them. But as soon as a Muslim person implements it, oh, suddenly it's bad. Suddenly it's, oh, we're so enlightened here. Shut up. No one's buying it anymore. Okay? And frankly, calling Zohran like, oh, he's like the next Islamic revolution. He's literally a progressive. What about his policies, besides the fact that he's Muslim, makes you think that he's going to be repressive towards women and gay people? Explain that to me in a way that's not racist. I'm waiting.
This is Brown Boy Reviews, Episode 1. FBI Director Kash Patel and New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. This is the duality of brown man. What do a U.S. conservative security advisor and a New York socialist politician have in common? If you guessed A brutal dictator in exile, you were right. No, not that brutal dictator. The shared history between Zoran Mamdani and Kash Patel dates back to 1972. This is Idi Amin. He expelled nearly 80,000 Indians from Uganda in an act of ethnic cleansing. Most of these families lived there for generations, and they were given just 90 days to leave. Fathers of these two men were amongst those that were forced out of Uganda as Indians. Both families fled, end up in the US, one via Canada and the other via South Africa. The same traumatic history, but two very different paths. Kash Patel becomes a key Trump ally, a conservative, and a national security icon. Mamdani, a democratic socialist fighting for housing and immigrant rights in New York City. Same history, different politics. Trauma does not dictate destiny. It shapes it in complex and sometimes opposing ways. Brown Boy ratings, Mamdani gets a 10 out of 10, and Kash Patel, 0.
All right, so for the first time in modern history, you're seeing ordinary white Americans, not the elites, not the billionaires, saying, wait, this is happening to us too. That is, ICE raids, authoritarian policing, economic pressure, political chaos, everything that Black people and minorities were always, talking about. People who believe that white skin alone was a permanent shield, are realizing something uncomfortable, right now. White privilege was never evenly distributed, and it's actually conditional. It protected some people for some time, for as long as they stayed useful to the system. The system, the white elites, the rich, the billionaires, only. There's the system. Not all white people, not people that are closer to whiteness. And once that usefulness fades, the system doesn't hesitate to discard you anytime, anywhere. So now what about proximity to whiteness? Because in itself, it's collapsing. And this is where the real lesson now begins to hit for most of these people you're seeing, speaking in these videos. Because for decades, many, especially non-Black groups were actually taught quietly and maybe sometimes even openly that if they stayed close enough to whiteness, they'd be safe. But that's a lie. The Indians, the Southeast Asians in this case, and certain immigrant groups that we know of, from Mexico, the Cubanos, the lighter skinned Latinos especially. And they were told, you're different, you're hardworking, you're educated, and you're good minorities. But let's be honest, that's not praise, especially coming from the white supremacist. That's a bait, and it's just a temporary reward for being politically useful, for generally being useful to the system. So now what we are looking at here, especially with these Southeast Asians, across social media and in real life, most of them are having this rude awakening. The same movement they defended, the same politics they aligned with, and the same MAGA base they thought that would offer belonging, is now turning its anger towards anyone who they think isn't one of them. And suddenly, it looks like some of them are shocked. But, Black Americans have been saying this for decades, that proximity to whiteness does not necessarily or does not equal acceptance. You're not accepted because you're just a little bit, close to whiteness. Not exactly. So it might just delay rejection, but at some point, rejection is always, on the way coming. So the system using people, then discarding them. That's the cycle, And let's be very clear. The system doesn't love you. The system doesn't respect you. And the system's plan doesn't include you at any point. It only uses you to attain its goal. MAGA only used these people to get to power. Trump just used them for their votes. You're needed when the model minority, sometimes is needed for purposes like to silence Black resistance. Then you get those praises that you're good, you're a better minority, you're very hardworking. It uses you when it needs the votes, it flatters you. And when it needs your services, your labor, it will welcome you. But once the political winds begin to shift, once, fear now becomes, the other avenue from which they can make profit, you're just an outsider like everybody else. And now many Indian Americans on the right are actually learning this the hard way, And this moment is bigger than just politics. It's cultural, it's psychological, and it's about identity. Because Black Americans didn't learn this lesson exactly just a few years ago. No, not in the 2010s, not in 2020s. They learned it over centuries. They learned that assimilation does not dismantle racism, does not dismantle this, imperial system. It just teaches you how to survive inside it. And now some communities are actually finally listening, not because they are convinced, but because, the fire is at their doorsteps. Exactly. So yes, this is reckoning, not just for MAGA and not just for white America, but for everyone else who believe that safety could be rented, through proximity. This isn't just a political conversation. It's a cultural mirror. And for many people, the reflection staring back at them right now is the most uncomfortable thing they've had to really, face. Because America has not suddenly changed to something that people don't understand. America has just finally started being very honest to everybody. America is a capitalistic system run by a few people who are mostly white elites or only white elites, and everybody else is used for profits. And if everybody else doesn't see the truth, realize the truth, and start, to come together against the system, then the system will continue to exploit everybody. Now we are seeing with Donald Trump, even white people, white farmers who are from red hot states, they are also crying. We are seeing them every day on social media. But Trump does not care because they are not part of the elite. So what about everybody else who only think that they are closer to whiteness? If white people can cry, how about those that think that their only protection is proximity to whiteness? So this is a moment of reckoning, and I think, and that's why I started this video by saying, maybe there's something small for America to thank Donald Trump for waking everybody up who was sleeping to know what America is, who and what really America is for everybody, and not just Black people, telling everybody who is not even listening that this is not what America should look like. Yeah, so that's my take about this. Share with me what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.